Welcome to Department of Collegiate and Technical Education, Government of Karnataka. Myself, Nemichand MG, Lecturer, Department of Mechanical. Subject is Mechanics of Machines for 3rd semester Diploma students. Unit 1, Basic Kinematics. It's a session 3. So, Basic Kinematics. Session outcome. In this session, the student should acquire knowledge of kinematic pair and its types. What are the types of kinematic pair? Outline. This session is about recap and discussing about the types of kinematic pair. In the previous session, I explained about what is kinematic link and what are the types of constraint motion. What is kinematic link? Kinematic link means each part of a machine which moves relative to some other part is known as kinematic link or simply link or element. Example, reciprocating steam engine. Diagram shows a reciprocating steam engine. Kinematic pair. What is kinematic pair? The two links are elements of each a machine when in contact with each other are said to form a pair if the relative motion between them is completely or successfully constrained. Then the pair is known as kinematic pair. The piston and cylinder of a steam engine forms a kinematic pair since they are in contact and the piston moves relative to the cylinder. So diagram shows the relative motion between the two links is completely or successfully constrained. So that's why it's called a kinematic pair. So consider a model which is having a square hole. To that square hole a square bar is inserted. It can only slide. So only one kind of motion is possible. So that's why it is completely constrained. So in the second diagram, consider a footstep bearing. When a shaft is inserted into a bearing, there will be an axial movement as well as rotary movement. When load is applied, so only rotary movement is possible. So that's why it is successfully constrained. A is completely constrained. Figure B is successfully constrained. Types of constraint motion. There are three types of constraint motion: completely constrained motion, incompletely constrained motion, successfully constrained motion. Completely constrained motion. When the motion between a pair is limited to a definite direction, irrespective of the direction of force applied, then the motion is said to be completely constrained motion. For example, the piston and cylinder in a steam engine form a pair. Second one, incompletely constrained motion. When the motion between a pair can take place in more than one direction, then the motion is called incompletely constrained motion. The change in the direction of impressed force may alter the direction of relative motion between a pair. Example, a circular bar or shaft in a circular hole. Third one, successfully constrained motion. When the motion between the elements forming a pair is such that the constrained motion is not completed by itself but by some other means, then the motion is said to be successfully constrained motion. For example, consider a shaft in a footstep bearing. When the load is placed on the shaft to prevent axial upward movement of the shaft, then the motion of the pair is said to be successfully constrained motion. Figure shows the different types of motion. One is completely constrained, second one is incompletely constrained motion, third one is successfully constrained motion. So today's session is classification of kinematic pairs. So kinematic pairs are classified into three types. A type of relative motion between the elements. B type of contact between the elements. C type of closure. Type of relative motion between the elements into five types. 1. Sliding pair, turning pair, rolling pair, screw pair, spherical pair. B. Type of contact between the elements into two types, lower pair, higher pair. Next, type of closure. So it's classified into self-closed pair and force-closed pair. So according to the type of relative motion between the elements, first one, type of relative motion between the elements, first one is sliding pair. When the two elements of a pair are connected in such a way that one can only slide relative to other pair is known as sliding pair. For example, the piston and cylinder, crosshead and guides of a reciprocating steam engine, ram and its guides in shaper, tailstock on the lathe bed. So diagram A shows a model which is having a square hole so that one bar can slide relative to the other. So diagram shows a tailstock which slides on the guideways of the lathe so one slide relative to the other. So that's why it's called a sliding pair. Turning pair. When two elements of a pair are connected in such a way that one can only slide relative, one can only turn or revolve about a fixed axis of another link, then the pair is known as a turning pair. It can only turn or revolve about a fixed axis of another pair. For example, a shaft with collar at both ends fitted into a circular hole so that only rotary motion is possible. Example, a lathe spindle supported in headstock, cycle wheels turning over their axles. So here consider an object having a circular hole. In a circular shaft is inserted. One can revolve or turn over the other fixed link. So this is a tile stack. So tile stack, drill chuck. So in between a chuck and a drill chuck, a workpiece is inserted. So this is a kind of operation in a lathe machine. So drilling a hole in a cylindrical object. So I will briefly explain what is a lathe chuck and what is a lathe machine. Lathe chucks are used to accurately clamp a workpiece on a lathe for different operations. It may be turning operation, facing operation, thread cutting operation, knurling operation. There are different types of chucks, but 3-jaw chuck and 4-jaw chuck are commonly used. So we studied about lathe chuck. Then what is a lathe? Lathe machine is a machine tool that rotates a workpiece about an axis. So it rotates a workpiece about an axis of rotation to perform various operations such as turning, facing, thread cutting, knurling, etc. Diagram shows a workpiece held between a chuck and a drill chuck to drill a hole at the center of the workpiece to perform different operation on a workpiece. The left side of the lathe we call it as a headstock, and the right side, this one is called headstock, and this side we have a headstock, and this side it is a tile stock. Rolling pair. When two elements of a pair are connected in such a way that one rolls over another fixed link, the pair is known as rolling pair. Ball and roller bearings are and railway wheels rolling over a fixed rail belt and a pulley are the examples of rolling pair. So here it's a ball and a roller bearing. So what is a roller bearing? A roller bearing is used to provide a low frictional movement for a bushing or a bearing block. What's a bearing? A bearing is a machine element that constrains relative motion to only the desired motion and reduces friction between moving parts. It's used in automobiles to reduce the friction between the moving parts. For example, in cycles, a bearing is provided. Second one, railway wheel rolling over a fixed rail. So in the track, the railway wheel keeps on rolling. Next, belt and pulley. Pulley rolls over a belt rolls over the pulley. So these are the examples of rolling pair. Screw pair. When two elements of a pair are connected in such a way that one element can turn about the other by screw threads. Example, figure shows a screw thread. Lead screw of a lathe with nut. Bolt with a nut. What is a lead screw? Lead screw is a screw used as a linkage in a machine to translate turning motion into a linear motion. It's a lead screw. So we translate turning motion into a linear motion. Figure shows a lead screw of a lathe. The carriage movement takes place on this lead screw. So this diagram shows a bolt with a nut. So this is a lead screw of a lathe machine. Spherical pair. When two elements of a pair are connected in such a way that one element with spherical shape turns or swivels about the other fixed element, the pair formed is called a spherical pair. The ball and socket joint, attachment of a car mirror, pen stand. So these are all the examples of a spherical pair. This diagram shows one element is fixed, the other element of spherical shape turns or swivels about the fixed element. Figure shows a ball and a socket joint. So this is a pen stand. So what is a ball and a socket joint? Ball and socket joint, it allows multi-directional movement and rotation. So more than one directions. What is a swivel? Swivel means a coupling between two parts enabling one to revolve without turning the other. It's called a swivel. According to the type of contact between the elements, it's classified into two types: lower pair, higher pair. Lower pair, when the two elements of a pair have a surface contact and the surface of one element slides or rolls over the surface of the other. So it's called a lower pair. Example: sliding pair, turning pair and screw pair forms lower pairs. So figure A is a sliding pair, figure B is a turning pair and figure C is a screw pair. One slides over the other, one turns or revolves over the other. Turning as well as sliding motion between them, it's a screw pair. So these three forms a lower pair. So universal joint is an example for a lower pair. What is a universal joint? Universal joint is a mechanical connection between rotating shaft which are usually not parallel but intersecting. They are used for transmitting motion, power, and both transmitting power and motion, power or motion. Figure shows a universal joint. Higher pair. What is a higher pair? When two elements of a pair have a line or point contact and the motion between the two elements is partly turning and partly sliding. Example: toothed gearing, ball and roller bearing and cam and follower. Toothed gearing. Consider a gears which mesh together. This is one gear, this is another gear. So it's a point contact. As one gear rotates, the other gear rotates in a opposite direction. The one gear drives the other gear One is a driver gear and the other one is a driven gear. So what is a gear? Number of teeth cut on the periphery of the wheel, so then it is called a gear. So next, see according to the type of closure, self-closed pair and force-closed pair. What is self-closed pair? Two elements of a pair are connected together mechanically in such a way that only required relative motion occurs is called self-closed pair. Example, lower pairs are self-closed pairs. Sliding pair, turning pair and screw pair form a lower pairs. Figures, this shows a sliding pair, this shows a turning pair, and figures, this shows a screw pair. What is force closed pair? The two elements of a pair are not connected mechanically but are kept in contact by the action of external forces. Means some force is applied to make them contact. So the pairs is said to be force closed pairs. Example, cam and a follower. Figure shows a cam which is rotating. It's a flat follower, it's a guide. So this is a follower which reciprocates to and fro. So what is a cam and a follower? A cam is a rotating machine element which gives reciprocating or oscillating motion to another machine element called follower by virtue of profile or shape of the cam making direct contact with the follower. So due to the spring action, so this follower moves down. So that's why, so it's not contacted mechanically but by the action of external force. Here the external force is the spring action. So in this session I explained about the types of kinematic pair. So there are three classification according to the type of relative motion between the elements, according to the type of contact between the elements, according to the type of closure. According to the type of relative motion between the elements, sliding pair, one can slide over the other. Turning pair, one can turn or revolve around the other. Rolling pair, one can roll over another fixed link. Screw pair, turning as well as a sliding motion between them is known as a screw pair. Spherical pair, one element with spherical shape turns or swirls about the fixed element. The pair is called a spherical pair. Second classification, according to the type of contact between the elements. A. Lower pair. B. Higher pair. Lower pair are those when the two elements of the pair have a surface contact when relative motion takes place and the one element slides over the surface of the other is known as a lower pair. Higher pair, when two elements of a pair have a line or point contact when relative motion takes place and the motion between the two elements is partly turning and partly sliding, then the pair is known as higher pair. Third classification, According to the type of closure, self-closed pair, force-closed pair. Self-closed pair, when two elements of pair are connected together mechanically in such a way that only required kind of relative motion occur, it is known as self-closed pair. The lower pairs are self-closed pairs. Force closed pairs, when two elements of a pair are not connected mechanically but connected some means of external force, so then it is called force closed pairs. Example, cam and a follower. Example, cam and follower. Next is multiple choice questions. For one question, there are four choices. Out of four choices, the students has to select one correct answer. First question, two elements of a pair connected in such a way that one element turns or swivels about the other fixed element. A. Turning pair, rolling pair, screw pair, spherical pair. Correct answer is spherical pair. Spherical pair means two elements of a pair is connected in such a way that one element turns or swivels about the fixed element. In turning pair, one can turn or revolve about a fixed axis of another ring. In lower pair, one can roll over another fixed ring. In screw pair, have a turning as well as a sliding motion between them. So correct answer is a spherical pair. The example of spherical pair is bolt and nut, lead screw of lathe, ball and socket joint, ball bearing and roller bearing. Correct answer is ball and a socket joint. Example of spherical pair. One element turns or swivels about the other fixed element. Third one, a cam with a roller follower would constitute following type of pair: lower pair, higher pair, open pair, close pair. Correct answer is higher pair. When two elements of a pair have a line or point contact when relative motion takes place, so that's why it's a example of an higher pair. Fourth one, force closed pairs are those which have point or line contact between the two elements when in motion. Surface contact between the two elements when in motion. Elements of pairs not held together mechanically. Two elements that permit relative motion. Correct answer is elements of a pair not held together mechanically. So that's why it's called force closed pairs. Fifth question. The main disadvantage of sliding pair is that it is bulky, wears rapidly, difficult to manufacture. D, A and B means bulky and wears rapidly. Correct answer is bulky and wears rapidly. Sixth one, toothed gear is an example of higher pair, turning pair, lower pair, sliding pair. Toothed gearing is an example of a higher pair. When two elements of a pair have a line or point contact when relative motion takes place, so and the motion between the two elements is partly turning and partly sliding. So that's why it is an higher pair. It's have a point contact. Gears have a point contact. Universal joint is an example of A higher pair, B lower pair, C rolling pair, D sliding pair. Correct answer is lower pair. Lower pair means when two elements of a pair have a surface contact when relative motion takes place. So one slides over the other. So it has a sliding pairs, turning pair and a screw pairs. All these three pairs forms a lower pair. So it has a sliding action, turning action and a screwing action. So many multi-directional actions takes place, so that's why it's an example of a lower pair. Eighth one, automobile steering gear is an example of higher pair, sliding pair, turning pair, lower pair. Correct answer is lower pair. So it also has a multi-directional motion. A sliding, turning, screw pairs. This forms a lower pair. The example of higher pair is A. Gears, B. Cams and followers, C. Ball and roller bearing, D. All of the above. Correct answer is all of the above. So, example of a higher pair, when two elements of pair are line or point contact when relative motion takes place. So these three are having gears, cams and followers, ball and bearing have a line or a point contact. So that's why these three are the examples of a higher pair. Answer is all of the above. 10th one, lower pair are those which have point or line contact between two elements when in motion. B. Surface contact between the two elements when in motion. C. Elements of pairs not held together mechanically. D. Two elements that performs relative motion. Correct answer is surface contact between two elements when in motion. Questions. These are the questions asked in previous examinations. First one, explain the following terms. Explain sliding pair, right sliding pair, turning pair, screw pair, spherical pair, rolling pair. So write down the definition of a pair, write the example and write down the diagram. Sliding pair means one can slide relative to the other. Example, piston and cylinder. Turning pair, one can turn or revolve about other link. Example, a shaft with collar at both ends. Screw pair, this will have a turning as well as a sliding motion between the two elements. Example, the lead screw of lathe with nut. Next, spherical pair. One element with spherical shape turns or swivels about the fixed link. Example, ball and socket joint. Rolling pair. One rolls over another fixed link. The pair is known as rolling pair. Example, ball and roller pairing. Roller pairing. It carries 5 marks. Second question, explain lower pair and higher pair. Defining what is lower pair. When two elements of pair have a surface contact, when relative motion takes place, is called a lower pair. Example, sliding pair, turning pair and screw pair forms a lower pair. What is a higher pair? When two elements of a pair have a line or point contact, when relative motion takes place, so and the motion between the two elements is partly turning and partly sliding, then is known as higher pair. Example, cam and follower. Explain self-closed pair and force-closed pair. Self-closed pair. When two elements of a pair are connected together mechanically such that only required kind of relative motion occur is known as self-closed pair. Lower pairs are self-closed pairs. Force-closed pairs. When two elements of a pair are not connected together mechanically but by means of an external force. Example, a cam and a follower. References. Our team members. Thank you.